In July 2022, Canadian law enforcement visited the leader of this Sikh temple. His name was Hardeep Singh Nijjar. They had a stark warning: your life is at risk. His son Balraj was there.
There were about 4 or 5 officers that showed up really late into the night. They first said there's an imminent threat of assassination against your life. You should maybe not go to work for a few weeks or months. And then his question was, okay, if I stay at home, who's gonna sort of be the breadwinner of the family?
At 45, Nijjar had dedicated his life to the creation of a separate state for Sikhs in India. His activism had made him a target of the Indian government, but he never went into hiding.
And that's why we call it a sacrifice, because he knew what he was doing. He knew what was coming.
So on June 18 of last year, he addressed a congregation that was there at the Gurdwara. And he was very open in that sense, telling the congregation and the community that, hey, look, if something does happen, it's India, that this is no mistake.
ਇੰਨਾ ਕੁ ਭਾਰਤੀ ਹਾਕਮ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਗੁਲਾਮ ਤੇ ਘਸਿਆਰੇ ਬਣਾ ਲਿਆ। ਉਹ ਆਲਰੇਡੀ ਸੋਸ਼ਲ ਮੀਡੀਆ ਤੇ ਉੱਥੇ ਦਾ ਹਾਕਮ ਇਹ ਗੱਲ ਕਵੇ, ਹੁਣ ਇੰਗਲੈਂਡ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਖੰਡੇ ਨੂੰ ਮਾਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ, ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲਾ ਸਮਾਂ ਕੈਨੇਡਾ ਅਮਰੀਕਾ ਦਾ ਹੈ, ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਸਮਝ ਲੈਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ।
India came for him 8 hours later on that same day.
Nijjar left the temple around 8 p.m. The temple's security camera shows him leaving in his pickup truck. To his left, a white sedan. As Nijjar neared the exit, the sedan blocked his path. 2 men jumped out and fired at Nijjar multiple times at close range. Nijjar's friends were playing soccer in the field next to the parking lot when they heard gunshots.
So when you opened the door to Hardeep's truck, what did you see?
He was shot all over the chest, and his body was leaning towards the passenger side, and his turban was off the head.
The 2 gunmen fled on foot toward a separate getaway car.
I just saw his pickup, and I just immediately knew it was him, that India had assassinated him.
From the moment that you heard that this happened, you were certain that India was behind this?
Yes, I was 100% certain. The fight has now arrived at our door.
3 months later, on the floor of the Canadian Parliament, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accused India of plotting Nijjar's killing.
Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
India strongly denied the allegations and called them absurd. The diplomatic firestorm threatened India's relationship with Canada and with the United States, its most powerful ally.
We have not really seen instances of Sikh activists being targeted in North America. So this is a new frontier, and it's shocking.
Why would India be willing to risk its relationship with the United States to silence these activists?
If you think of the Sikh assassination program in isolation, it seems far-fetched. But if you think of it as a continuation of repression that is happening in India, then it makes sense.
What message do you think that they were trying to send?
I think the message they were trying to send is that we'll come to your home and we'll kill your leader right in front of you, and you won't be able to do anything.
This year, the annual parade marking the Sikh New Year outside Vancouver was dedicated to Hardeep Singh Nijjar. It's been almost a year since he was gunned down at the temple nearby. With 500,000 people here, it's the largest gathering of Sikhs outside of India. A sea of yellow flags are printed with the word Khalistan. It's the name of the would-be state for Sikhs that Nijjar advocated for, and that allegedly motivated India to assassinate him.
Odd to me that last year, I can picture me and him on that same stage, and now I'm standing there, with his son a year later, and he's not there.
Maninder Singh was a close friend of Nijjar's. In 2022, he was also warned by Canadian law enforcement that he could be killed at any moment.
And the last thing he said to me in person was, if something happens, make sure you take care of things. I think he meant his family, but I think even more than that, I think he meant the Panth or the nation.
Are you somebody that naturally likes to be on the stage like this in front of all of these people?
No, I've been more of the person who's just part of the crowd. I wasn't someone who likes a spotlight. I'd rather just be part of everyone else. But if I can just get his story out there, hopefully I've done my part. How do we get the proper justice? How do we hold everyone accountable for what they've done?
Intimidating, silencing, and harming critics across national borders is known as transnational repression.
The goal of transnational repression is regime maintenance. It's about upholding an image of a country or a leader abroad and silencing dissent.
Yana Gorohovskaya has been tracking the spread of transnational repression around the world.
It's hard to say what the message behind the assassination is, but I think that it's probably related to just how much those activists are viewed as a threat to the internal stability within India.
A member of the Canadian Parliament, Jagmeet Singh, was also at the parade. After Trudeau accused India of killing Nijjar, he spoke directly to Canadian Sikhs from the floor of the House.
The Indian government and the Modi government specifically is attempting to silence you. But truth cannot be silenced. Justice cannot and will not be silenced.
Singh is the leader of a major political party in Canada. He's also reportedly been warned about the threat of assassination.
What does it tell you that India would go after the leader of a national party here in Canada?
So I've said that I can't respond to information regarding my personal security, and to me it is completely wrong that anyone in Canada would live in any fear that while in Canada, on Canadian soil, that a foreign government is threatening their life in any way or threatening their safety in any way.
They think they're gonna kill us and eventually shut us up. I don't think that's gonna work. One thing for sure, though, is that Khalistan will be made.
Khalistan. That's the name of the new country for Sikhs that activists would like to carve out of the Indian state of Punjab. Nijjar started organizing symbolic votes for the would-be Sikh state in the years before his death. He hoped that staging referendums in Western nations would be a step toward the creation of a new country for Sikhs. But inside India today, the idea has little support. So why would India put its most important economic and diplomatic ties on the line to suppress it?
To truly understand that program, one has to be thinking about the authoritarian logic. And they have had a lot of success chilling dissent. And they are now exporting that ideology and those practices abroad.
4 days after Nijjar was gunned down, supporters chanted Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's name on the south lawn of the White House. Since coming to power in 2014, he's brought economic growth to India and raised its global stature. But critics argue he's also targeted Christians, Muslims, and other religious minorities in his effort to remake India into a Hindu nation.
The Modi government is very much an authoritarian regime. Anybody who dares to criticize the regime runs the risk that they could be harassed, that they could be imprisoned, that they could be designated a terrorist.
The United States had once effectively banned Modi for almost a decade because of his alleged role in a 2002 wave of violence against Muslims. Now President Biden is hosting him for an opulent state dinner.
Modi is a Hindu nationalist. Modi is someone who believes that Hindus should enjoy privileged status over all other communities, over all other faiths in India. We've also seen state laws across India that criminalize conversion to Islam, that criminalize interfaith marriages. Lynchings are organized on Facebook, and the videos are uploaded for the world to see. And these are often Hindu mobs who are targeting Muslims, Dalits, Christians, and others. And yet the world continues to welcome Modi with open arms. India is seen as a counter to China, specifically in the West.
Prime Minister Modi, welcome back to the White House.
And so Western leaders are very keen on courting India and courting Modi. And Modi weaponizes that.
In September, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said the United States expects those responsible for Nijjar's killing to be held to account.
We want to see accountability.
The State Department declined our request for an interview. As Modi dined at the White House, Indian intelligence agents were allegedly finalizing their next assassination, this time on American soil. Indian spies planned to kill a Sikh activist in New York City, according to an indictment filed in U.S. federal court last year. The target was Gurpatwan Singh Pannoon, a lawyer who advocates for a separate state for Sikhs in India. He was friends with Nijjar. In their last conversation, just hours before Nijjar was gunned down, he warned Pannoon that they were both targets.
So he did tell me that he has been informed that there is a direct threat to his life, that I need to be careful. There are hitmen out there who are looking for you. His words just came so true.
According to the indictment, Indian intelligence agents hired a hitman in New York City to assassinate Pannoon. The price? $100,000. But the hitman was an undercover U.S. law enforcement agent who foiled the plot. The indictment also ties the New York plan to the killing in Canada. Just hours after Nijjar's death, the spies sent their New York contact a video clip of Nijjar's bloody body slumped in his vehicle. They were just the first in a series of planned hits. "We have so many targets," one plotter said, according to the indictment.
Even in the indictment, it confirmed that there were 4 or 5 other Sikhs besides my dad and Mr. Pannu who were being targeted in Canada or the US. It sort of made it very clear there was a clear pattern of who India was targeting.
Do you think your life is still under threat?
Yes.
But despite the threat, Pannoon told me he plans to continue advocating for Khalistan.
Why is this something that is so important to you?
So I have seen all the atrocities. I've seen like what happened in 84.
1984. That year, in the Indian state of Punjab, Sikh militants occupied Sikhism's holiest site, the Golden Temple. Then, in June, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi ordered the Indian Army to raid the complex and crush the Khalistan movement.
The Indian government took tanks, invaded the Golden Temple, murdering an untold number of Sikh worshippers that day.
Troops again controlled the temple, the Sikh faith's holiest shrine.
In retaliation for the Golden Temple raid, Indira Gandhi was assassinated by 2 of her Sikh bodyguards. The Prime Minister's death unleashed a wave of violence against Sikhs across India.
Scores of cars belonging to Sikhs were burned. Most taxi drivers in Delhi are Sikhs, proving easy targets for angered Hindus.
The Indian government was behind some of the worst human rights abuses of that era, says Sukhman Dami, who spent years interviewing thousands of victims.
And what are we looking at here?
What we're looking at here is a map of the state of Punjab that shows all the incidences of unlawful killings and enforced disappearances that we've documented. And as you can see, there's virtually no area of Punjab that hasn't reported atrocities committed by India's security forces.
What was the scale of the violence? I mean, what did you find?
We were able to investigate and document 5,300 enforced disappearances and unlawful killings perpetrated by India's security forces.
As these killings and forced disappearances shook Punjab, Hardeep Singh Nijjar was coming of age.
He did share stories how one day he would be sitting with a group of friends and the next one of them is missing. You just have to hope that tomorrow you're not next. And it would just make me wonder, like, how many friends has he lost to this already?
His own experience came when he was actually picked up, tortured by police brutally. You know, the final straw came when, like, people around him very quickly started to disappear and he needed to leave. He found a way out because he knew he would, sooner or later, it was his turn.
Nijjar fled Punjab for Canada in 1997. He married and had 2 sons.
There's a tradition in Punjab that, you know, when you become brothers, you exchange turbans. At the day he was assassinated, I went and grabbed that turban and I tore it in half. And since that day, I've had 2 of them. One is always the bottom layer that touches my head when I tie my turban. So it kind of feels like he's with me all the time. So, yeah, I think that's probably how close we were.
Do you feel like you've been able to properly grieve his death?
Probably not. I don't think I ever will, just because of who he meant to me. Since, I would say, day one, I've been kind of stuck to his hip. As I got older, it went from more of like a dad and son relationship to friends and then best friends, especially as certain instances or certain situations started rising these past 10, 15 years, especially through the Indian media. It just brought us closer together as a family.
In 2020, India labeled Nijjar as a terrorist. It accused him of meeting militant leaders, smuggling ammunition, and plotting killings in India.
India labeled Hardeep as a terrorist. Was he a terrorist?
No, he wasn't. I mean, you know, a terrorist, a would-be terrorist, someone who supports terrorism, they have to basically do things.
Dan Stanton spent more than 30 years as an officer in the Canadian Security Intelligence Service.
And so when India says we have someone or a witness or a source who says Mr. Nijjar is a terrorist, I would question that. You know, you may not like the activism, but as long as it's not violent, it still is a free expression.
So this document came out in July 1st, 2020. These are the charges against you. This is how they're calling you a terrorist here. They say that you have been issuing appeals and propagating through social media regularly to Punjab-based gangsters and youth to fight for the cause and independent state of Khalistan, challenging the sovereignty, integrity, and security of the country.
If somebody has to label me as a terrorist, they need to tell me what act of violence I have committed and who did I kill.
By referring to, you know, quote unquote terrorists or extremists abroad, Modi is using an old playbook. Lots of governments, when they target people abroad, they don't say, we target our critics. They talk about extremists, they talk about, you know, terrorists.
The same year, India labeled Nijjar a terrorist. Hundreds of thousands of farmers, mostly Sikhs from Punjab, descended on New Delhi to protest Modi's agricultural reforms. It was one of the few times Modi backed down and changed course. At the time, Modi's government tried to portray the large protest as the work of Khalistani terrorists.
The farmers won. And by some accounts, it was one of the only major losses that the Modi government has suffered.
It was this loss that motivated the assassination plots in North America, The Guardian reported. Recently, at a campaign rally, Modi boasted about hunting down terrorists abroad.
मोदी की मजबूत सरकार है आतंकवादियों को घर में घुसकर मारा जाता है.
Does Sikh extremism exist in Canada today?
No, Sikh extremism doesn't exist in Canada. As far as I know, we have activism. They wish to portray them, in fact, they wish to create this, I'll call it an illusion, that in other countries like Canada, Sikhs, particularly Sikh activists, are a national security threat. That's part of the narrative that India wants people to believe. The activism is no different than the extremism, and since Canada did have an experience with extremism, there is a kernel of truth, certainly with respect to the Air India bombing.
In 1985, Sikh fighters planted a bomb on an Air India flight from Vancouver to New Delhi, killing all 329 people on board. It was the deadliest terror attack in Canada's history. But in the years after the attack, the militant movement effectively fell apart.
I'd say into the 90s, it pretty well dissipated. We had security in Punjab, and certainly those organizations basically disappeared. But where does the Indian government use this? They go back almost 40 years, and they try to put the activists in Canada today, people that are just basically expressing, free expression, tying them into the extremism of many decades ago.
Just months before Nijjar's killing, India's Ministry of External Affairs sent a secret memo to Indian consulates portraying him as an extremist against whom concrete measures must be taken. The memo was first reported by The Intercept. It orders a sophisticated crackdown scheme against pro-Khalistan activists in Western countries. It instructs consular officials to work with the Indian spy agency known as RAW, the Research and Analysis Wing.
Goyal's photo, I think, is right here.
The head of the RAW was a man named Samant Goyal. He'd made his name during the crackdown against Sikhs in Punjab.
And during his tenure there, he oversaw the unlawful killing and disappearance of well over 100 individuals, and he participated directly in some of these operations.
Dhami's team interviewed thousands of witnesses to estimate the scale of human rights violations perpetrated under Goyal's command.
And so these are the abuses that we documented that he's implicated in. Nearly 130 enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings. And what we now know is that he would have been instrumental in planning and orchestrating that assassination.
So some of the same people that were responsible for killing Sikhs in the 80s and 90s were involved in planning Hardeep Singh Nijjar's killing?
That's correct. These individuals were particularly qualified to lead these intelligence agencies because they proved that they were willing to do whatever the state asked of them, including torture, unlawful killings, and enforced disappearances.
Samant Goyal and the Indian government did not respond to our request for comment. In April, the Washington Post reported that the FBI, the CIA, and other American intelligence agencies found that Samant Goyal approved the New York assassination plot. American intelligence also tentatively assessed that this man, one of Modi's closest advisors, Ajit Doval, was probably aware of the assassination plans, according to the Washington Post.
How far up did this go?
Well, let's look at it this way. The director of the Research and Analysis Wing, the RAW, reports directly to Modi. I think it goes right up to Prime Minister Modi.
Do you think there's going to be meaningful accountability for the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar and the targeting of other Sikh activists?
For the US and Canada, a cooperative relationship with India is very important. It's an important economic and security partner, and it is also a hugely important buffer to the influence of China. And for those reasons, pursuing cases of transnational repression and pushing accountability for those cases is a trade-off for governments between upholding human rights and pursuing their foreign policy interests.
It has been almost a year since Nijjar's killing. In New York, Panoon lives with round-the-clock security. In Surrey, there is a sense of fear in the community.
Why are you all concerned about showing your faces when you're talking about all of this?
We're Canadian, yes, but the thing is, we don't want to put our lives at risk in that sense.
Just Nijjar, he was preaching here, being totally peaceful.
Best to be safe than sorry.
These are Canadians. They played hockey as they were kids and everything else. But it doesn't matter where you're living in the world, there should not be a foreign state targeting you in your country. That's wrong.
In May, Canadian law enforcement arrested 4 men who allegedly carried out Nijjar's killing. Community members gathered at the courthouse for the first hearing. India has promised an investigation into the New York assassination plot, but a year after Nijjar's death, there's no sign that those who planned it will be held accountable.
I think it's wishful thinking that they will be held responsible, just because it is a geopolitical game. They just won't care. That they feel they're that they're enough of a big power in the world now that it doesn't really matter to them. They don't really care what the rest of the world thinks.